This is a SnapEd New York video presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Wendy Beckman and I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging and SnapEd New York. Thanks for joining me today on What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Today I'm going to be making a mushroom Bulgar Pilaf. We'll be posting the link to the recipe below, and the recipe can also be found on the SnapEd New York website at www.snapedny.org. Before we get into the recipe, let's look at my plate. My plate is a graphic representation of what our plate should look like every time we sit down to eat. This recipe covers the grain section of my plate because Bulgar is a whole grain. You want to make half of your grains whole grains every day. Whole grains have more fiber and nutrients compared to white or refined grains. It's okay to include some refined grains in your diet, things like white bread or white rice, but you want to consume at least half of your grains as whole grains. Bulgar is cracked wheat, and it has been parboiled so it cooks quicker than cracked wheat. The kind I'm using here is made from red winter wheat. Red winter wheat is grown in New York State, mostly in western New York. Bulgar is easy to cook and very versatile. Since Bulgar is parboiled and dried before it's packaged, just like converted rice or quick cooking rice, it cooks in only about 10 minutes. If you want to learn a little bit more about converted rice, be sure to check out my video where I make brown rice pilaf with sage, walnuts, and dried fruit. In that video, I explain a little bit more about converted or quick cooking rice. Bulgar is a common ingredient around the world, particularly in Middle Eastern and Mediterranean cuisines. If you've ever had tabbouleh, then you've had Bulgar. Bulgar's flavor is light and nutty, and it has a chewy texture when it's cooked. Bulgar is minimally processed, so it retains much of its nutritional value, unlike more refined wheat products. Bulgar is a rich source of fiber, with one serving fulfilling about 20% of your recommended daily intake. High-fiber foods can help promote digestive and heart health. It's also a great source of manganese, iron, and magnesium. Bulgar is also relatively low in calories, which, when combined with its high fiber content, makes it a great food for weight loss or weight maintenance. If you aren't able to find Bulgar in one of your local stores, you can substitute any other whole grain in this recipe. So, for example, you could use brown rice or quinoa instead. This recipe also includes mushrooms, onions, and spinach, all which fall into the vegetable category. Most Americans don't eat the recommended amount of vegetables each day, so adding some veggies to this side dish is a great way to add more veggies to your plate, getting you closer to your goal of making half of your plate fruits and vegetables. Remember that everything you eat and drink over time matters. You want to find your healthy eating style and maintain it for a lifetime. The right mix can help you be healthier now and in the future. So let's start making this mushroom Bulgar Pilaf. Don't forget, you can find this recipe and many others on the SnapEd New York website at www.snapedny.org. Remember to wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer before you start cooking. Let's look at the ingredients for this recipe. This recipe makes 6 servings, and you could easily cut the recipe in half to make only 3 servings. Each serving is 2/3 of a cup, with 90 calories and only 1.5 grams of total fat and 1/2 gram of saturated fat. It also has 4 grams of fiber and 4 grams of protein. So let's look at the ingredients. The recipe calls for 1 onion chopped. This is about 1 medium onion. You can slice it or chop it. I've chopped mine up pretty fine. I have some vegetable oil here, about 1/2 teaspoon. You can use any kind of vegetable oil that you like olive oil or canola oil, and I have canola oil here. You'll also need 3 cups of fresh mushrooms sliced up. I have them right here. You can chop them fine if you want to. That's about 12 medium button mushrooms. I used fresh mushrooms here, but you can also use jar mushrooms if you want. You'll probably need to use less than 3 cups if you use the jarred mushrooms, and you want to make sure that you drain them thoroughly. You're going to need 3/4 of a cup of Bulgar, which is right here. And I have 1.5 cups of water here. You might need to add more during the cooking process, just be mindful of that. You're also going to need 2 teaspoons of dried bouillon or 2 bouillon cubes, and that's what I have here. You can use either chicken or vegetable. I have chicken ones here. Here I have a half a teaspoon of garlic powder right there and a quarter teaspoon of pepper. I also have 2 cups of fresh spinach roughly chopped. You can use frozen spinach since all forms of veggies count. Fresh, frozen, canned, or dried can all be used. So if you use the frozen spinach, you're going to want to thaw it first and then squeeze out as much of the water as you can before you add it to your dish. If you've ever cooked fresh spinach, then you know it cooks down a lot once it's in the pan. So I would plan for maybe only a cup or a cup and a half of thawed frozen spinach if that's what you're going to use. Now you're going to need a medium saucepan, which I have here. Actually, I have a skillet right here. And you're going to need a tightly fitting lid. The first step is to saute the onions in the oil in the pan open before you put the top on until they're softened. I'm going to add the oil to the pan. This pan's been heating for a few minutes, so it's already ready for those onions. Now we're going to add the onions, so let's get those here. I want to make sure I use my spoon to get those all out. You can hear them cooking. So we're going to stir that around a little bit. Make sure we have a little bit of oil on all of the onions. You want to cook the onions until they're soft. Onions contain a lot of antioxidants, so consuming them has been linked to a reduced risk of cancer and better blood sugar control. They're also a good source of vitamin C, folate, vitamin B6, and potassium. Now, if you don't like onions, you can use onion powder in the recipe instead. Usually, I like to use onion powder instead of onion salt to cut down on the sodium content in my food. And here they're starting to brown up just a little bit. We'll keep cooking those. Now, you'll know that your onions are cooked enough when they start getting just to look a little bit translucent or a little bit more see-through. So these need a little bit more time because they're still pretty white. But you'll be able to see when they start to brown up a little bit and they start looking a little more see-through. So once the onions are soft enough, you're going to add the mushrooms and saute those with the onions until they become brown. So I'm going to add some of these in here. I did call for 3 cups of mushrooms. You can use a little bit less if you think that that's too much. But again, once you add the mushrooms, they are going to cook down a little bit. So even though it sort of looks like a lot in the pan right now, it'll be less than this once they cook a little bit. So I'm going to chop a couple of these mushrooms right here. These are the white button mushrooms. You can see they have a nice white top on them. You want to make sure that when you purchase them, they are going to still have a little bit of dirt on them. They do grow right in the dirt. So you're going to have to wash them pretty thoroughly. Sometimes you have to sort of scrub them a little bit with your hands or with a brush or something like that. But I am going to just slice these a little bit. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way of the knife when you're cutting. You want to make sure that you don't get your fingers in there. So that's what that looks like. There we go. So I'm going to stir those around a little bit more. So we want to get those browned up and incorporated with those onions. Now you want to keep stirring during the cooking process frequently. You don't want anything to stick to the bottom of the pan. So you got to make sure that everything gets a little bit of heat on it. And there are many kinds of mushrooms to choose from. You can use the ones you like the most. Like I said, I'm using the white button mushrooms. Those are very readily available, and those are the kinds of mushrooms that I actually like. So mushrooms are a good source of antioxidants, just like the onions are. They're a good source of vitamin C, folate, potassium, and fiber. So they're a great addition to any meal, really. They're actually a really good substitute for meat. So some vegetarians and vegans use mushrooms in place of meat. Maybe you've seen like a mushroom burger out there before. So it's a good way to sort of add a little bit more bulk if you're using something like ground meat. So you can put some mushrooms if you're making something like a dish that has some ground beef in it. And the mushrooms will sort of add a little extra something to it. And then you can stretch your meat a little bit more. So those are looking pretty good. Next, we're going to add in the bulgur, and we're going to lightly brown it. Now, this is the bulgur that I have here. It's actually a pretty medium brown color already. Because this is the red wheat, There is soft wheat, spring soft wheat, which is a little bit lighter in color, and that's a little easier to see when it's browned. But what you're doing when you add this to the pan, it just adds a little bit more flavor to the bulgur before we add some of the other ingredients. So we're going to just mix that all around and try and get some of that bulgur really mixed in with the mushrooms and with the onions. That's looking pretty good. And the onions always smell so good when they're cooking. So the next thing we're going to do, we have to add the water so that the bulgur cooks down. So let's do that next. Add this water in here. All right. Now, like I said, during the cooking process, you may need to add more water. I needed to when I cooked some earlier. There just wasn't a cup and a half, just wasn't enough while it was cooking down, but you can evaluate it. One of the things you want to do is you're going to put the top on after we've added some of the other ingredients. So first we have to add the bouillon cubes or your bouillon powder. Like I said, those sort of break down while it's cooking. And we have to add the garlic powder. That goes in next. And then we're going to add the pepper. Okay, let's stir this all together. Oh, that smells really good. Really starting to come together very nicely now. Because once you have all of the ingredients in here that need to be cooked down, we're going to put the top on. So let me just mix that around a little bit more. And then we're going to put the top on this pan. Once you have the top on, you're going to cook it for 15 to 20 minutes or until the bulgur is tender and the liquids are absorbed. After that's all cooked, you're going to take the pan off of the heat and mix the spinach in, and then your dish is ready to serve. So what I did is when I made mine, I like my spinach a little more cooked, so I put the spinach in while it was still on the heat, and I let it cook down a little bit more. But that's completely up to you. You can add the spinach when the pan is still on the heat or later on, whatever you want to do. But you want to add it last because it will sort of get too mushy and wilt down too much if you have it in here for 15 to 20 minutes while the bulgur cooks. So while this continues to cook, let me show you some of the bulgur pilaf that I made earlier today. So here it is. You can see that I incorporated the spinach into this dish, and it really does smell wonderful with the onions and the bulgur and the mushrooms all together. So I hope that this recipe gave you some more ideas on how to incorporate more whole grains and vegetables into your eating pattern. Don't forget to join me next month when I share more tips on how to save time, save money, and eat healthy. In June, I'm going to be making applesauce brownies, which I'm really looking forward to. Join me on Friday, June 28th at 12:30 p.m. right here on the New York State Office for the Aging Facebook page and the New York State Office for the Aging YouTube channel. If you watch on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you know when new content is added. This presentation was funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We know the healthy choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small changes can make a big difference. Start today by getting involved with SNAP Ed New York. This program is free for those who qualify or receive SNAP benefits. We want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. Learn how SNAP Ed can make a difference in your life. For more information and to find your local program, visit snapedny.org. This material is funded by USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP. This institution is an equal opportunity provider.
Hi, I'm registered dietitian Wendy Beckman, host of What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Over the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to share healthy, nutritious recipes with you on the show. I work for the New York State Office for the Aging, and thanks to a partnership with SNAP Ed New York, our nutrition team reaches hundreds of thousands of older New Yorkers each year. So why a cooking program? 60% of health costs and related issues have nothing to do with health, but instead have to do with individual behaviors like our food choices and physical activity. The recipes we feature are nutritionally appropriate for older adults, meeting critical nutrition requirements for healthy aging. What I bet you don't know is that this show is only part of a larger effort. To help me explain what our nutrition team at the New York State Office for the Aging does and what a registered dietitian is, here is registered dietitian Lisbeth Irish.
A registered dietitian is a professional who has training and education in food and nutrition. To become an RD, you must complete certain requirements, including a minimum of a bachelor's degree from an institution that's accredited by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. You must also pass a national examination and meet continuing education requirements. What does that mean? As RDs, we are qualified to offer accurate advice about nutrition, and we can help answer your questions about how diet can affect your health. At NYSOFA, the registered dietitians handle many tasks. This includes hosting 2 online programs aimed at helping older New Yorkers make better nutrition choices. These programs are What's Cooking with NYSOFA, which is our monthly cooking demonstration, and a Facebook Live program that I host called Ask the Experts, Nutrition Edition. In the months ahead, be on your lookout for it. We'll be sharing your questions and our experts' answers about nutrition and health. New episodes of Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition debut the second Friday of each month on Facebook and YouTube.
As Lisbeth explained, registered dietitians at NYSOFA handle many tasks, including food safety at congregate meal sites, educational materials, and outreach. In the meantime, please don't miss an episode of either show produced by our team, What's Cooking with NYSOFA and Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition. Every episode is uploaded to YouTube, and you'll find the archive shows there.
Do you have a question about foods? Or do you have a particular health issue that you'd like to improve by changing your diet? Tune in to Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition every second Friday at 1 p.m. We'd love to hear from you.
Remember, registered dietitians are the experts in nutrition. Visit for more sound advice about eating healthy on a budget.